So as Kyle said, I've created a project called the Nye Sketch Log. And hold on one second, I'm having trouble advancing my first slide. So this is a cover of my first book called the Nye Sketch Log. It was a compilation of 52 of my essays. I've been publishing an essay a week for the last 10 years. The first volume was published in 2014. The second volume came out in 2 years later in 2016. I originally started drawing when Kyle described me as a native of Rockland County. I've been visiting Rockland County every week for my whole life. My grandmother lived here. But in 2010, I moved back to the county full time to care for an elderly parent. And part of my process was doing a sketch every day to reacquaint myself with the village that I had known my whole life, but not intensely. And I was seen by a colleague, Dave Zornow, while drawing in Nyack, and Dave asked me the question, would you like to publish your work? So this here is this is an image of that first sketch that Dave observed me drawing. It's a building that's behind the post office in Nyack. If anybody's familiar with the post office, it's on South Broadway. I picked this image because it represented the style of housing that my family had lived in for many years. As Kyle mentioned, my family came to Nyack in the 1880s, and we became involved in the St. Philip's Church, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And but in the 1950s, the family home was bulldozed during urban renewal. So that house just doesn't exist anymore. And part of I think one of the reasons why I've been so adamant about preserving history is that history of my family and that very important property of my family had been taken away. So this house that's behind the post office, that's on Liberty Street, closely resembles those homes that were destroyed. Here's a photograph of my family from around 1903. This is the only representation I have of that house. So it's just a close-up of a back door and a window. And as my process has been in not only writing history, but illustrating history, I sometimes feel like I can better meditate on a topic through my pen. So this is a drawing of my family that captures that moment of them sitting behind the house on what was then Jackson Avenue, 23 Jackson Avenue. It was very devastating, the process of urban renewal. My family, were able to purchase their home in the 1880s. And if you think about it, that's just, almost like just 20 years after the abolition of slavery in the United States. So to go from being considered property as an African-American to owning property was an extraordinary journey in such a short time. So as you can imagine, losing that home during urban renewal was a devastation that still has a wound, healed wound in our family narrative. So as I mentioned, St. Philip's. So each sketch log basically has a drawing and an essay. I'll show you how the book is structured. One of those earlier slides shows you how it looks online, but this is how it looks as a book. So the drawings, originally I would sit at the location and draw. It's amazing what you begin to experience through the powers of observation. I wanted very much to draw from life. Most artists will tell you that that's the best way to capture anything. In plein air is the kind of the landscape term, but nothing really ever stays the same for more than a second. The weather, the sun is moving constantly. And I need a very stark image. I draw in black and white, so the shadows are very important. And if you sit down and look at any object in the day, I mean, things do feel stationary, but nothing stays the same. And in 15 minutes, you're not looking at the same image. So, but I would sit, this one, I did actually sit on the curb, and I started to tell a little bit of the story. If I could go back, the seated gentleman with the mustache and the young boy on his lap was my great-grandfather, George T. Avery, and he was a deacon at this church, St. Philip's. St. Philip's currently is at the corner of North Mill and Bird in Nyack. So I'll read you a little excerpt from the sketch log that accompanied that illustration. 2 years before Abraham Lincoln was sworn in as president, St. Philip's AME Zion Church was founded in 1859 by abolitionist John W. Tout. Today, the term abolitionist is considered a badge of honor, but in the 1850s, as slave catchers roamed the North, empowered by the loathsome Fugitive Slave Act, the title brought legal jeopardy and mortal danger. It was under the gathering and ominous clouds of a civil war over race-based slavery that Tout arrived in Nyack, determined to contribute to the welfare of the Black community. So each sketch, not only, they sometimes start with a building, a location, a landmark, but they're actually stories about people and lives. And I believe every building is, the story there is a poem or a screenplay or a novel unwritten. So I try to do an essay form justice to the stories there. John Tout was the founder of St. Philip's, or provided early funds. But for now, 160 over plus years later, it's still a thriving congregation. And that I also talk a little bit in some of my other essays about the AME Zion branch or church. Some of the founding members were Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass. And as people are piecing together the trails of the Underground Railroad, very much the AME Zion Church figures greatly. So if you're looking for the trail of the AME Zion Church and you find, if you're looking for the trail of the Underground Railroad and you find an AME Zion Church, you're well along the way. So this is a discovery that I made in the process of the sketch log. I never knew about this, but let me advance, hold on one second, there we go. So this is a drawing of Congregation Sons of Israel. The synagogue, which is in Upper Nyack now, started out actually in a store in Main Street in Nyack, but for many years it was in a building that still stands on the corner of Hudson Avenue and Broadway. And I had passed both structures many times, but until I started to learn the history, I didn't know this fact. So when I did these, a lot of times people provide the resource material for these essays. There was Alan Englander, a gentleman, lent me the Centennial Journal from Congregation Sons of Israel. And as I was going through it, I learned an amazing fact about the abolitionist period and the role of the Jewish community. And I also found out something about a more recent period of tumult in our country, the civil rights movement. So here's an excerpt from the essay on Congregation Sons of Israel. The 1960s were a period of social activism around issues of racial justice in America. In the 19th century, a bond was built between the Congregation Sons of Israel and the African-American community in Nyack. In the 1860s, founding members Abraham Brown and Moses Oppenheimer were active in the Underground Railroad. 100 years later, in February 1963, 70 members of the St. Philip's AME Church were invited to worship at Sons of Israel in a race relations Sabbath. On a following Sunday, Reverend McKinley invited Rabbi Krantz and his congregation to a service at St. Philip's. So not only did I think that was amazing, being a member of St. Philip's and thinking about what a simple but profound act, a fellowship that was. But it struck me that it's amazing that I'd only heard about it in the pages of a Centennial Journal. And it struck me that there are probably moments in our history, whether they have to come before or I mean after a major incident, but just the connections and the familiarity and the solidarity that could be developed if we would occasionally visit in worship with other religions is profound, and I hope that was something that we could revisit in the future. So right now, mostly these are of Nyack, but I'm moving a little bit further into the county, and I will try to share some of the other stories in other parts of Rockland. But this next one is of Mount Moore Cemetery. The cemetery is located at what is now the Palisade Mall. It was originally established in 1849 and survived until the 1980s, when there was a proposal by the Pyramid Company to actually either disinter all of those buried there or concretize the cemetery and just put a marker up. And
Bill,
there was a valiant
sorry, Bill.
Hello?
We're not
Yes.
seeing the slides.
You're not seeing any of the slides?
No. So, well, we saw them at first, and then that last one, they came down. So
Hold on one second.
try to share them again.
Can you see that slide?
No,
No.
I'm not seeing it.
Maybe screen sharing stopped. Hold on. Very sorry.
It's good.
We don't, no, don't see this. We don't see the slide. Thank you. Now we do.
Can you see the slide?
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Very,
yeah,
very sorry.
we're back on track.
All right. So you only saw the book cover.
We saw the picture of the church.
Okay.
Book
So
cover of the
you
church.
didn't see? Did you see this one?
No,
Okay. I mean, the drawings are only a part of the story, but I'd like for you to see it. This is the facade of the Congregation Sons of Israel, and those are that sculpture. My depiction of the sculpture in the front is the Ten Commandments,
mhm.
and so this is one of the monuments at Mount Moore, and if you see in the background the fencing and the van. That's a parking area at the Palisade Mall. So yeah, a group of individuals worked very hard to make sure that the burial ground was undisturbed. Recently, we've done some research. I'm a member of the Friends of Mount Moore Cemetery, and we've discovered some things about those people buried there. Some of the men who there are 31 of those buried, and we think there could be as many as 300 people buried there. Only around 120 have been identified. It was for many years a very unresourced cemetery, so records that might have been kept did not endure. But of the veterans who were buried there, we're learning a lot. And one of the gentlemen was present at the battle during the Civil War, where the term "damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead" was uttered. Several of the gentlemen there were born into slavery, freed themselves, and then returned to the South to fight for the Union Army, and then visited the places where they had once been held slaves as freemen and veterans. It's an extraordinary story, Mount Moore, and I urge you, if you're ever near the Palisade Mall, to visit. And I'll read you a little bit from that essay that talks about how it was saved. At a meeting at Depew Manor in 1994, a representative of the Pyramid Companies surrendered to the group's demand, and this was the Friends of Mount Moore Cemetery. Once it was granted a place on the Federal Register, the cemetery could not be buried or dug up. There would also be one final tombstone. On March 13th, 2007, Hezekiah Easter Jr. was laid to rest beside his brother and his father. The man who saved the cemetery is the last man buried at Mount Moore. A parking structure and the facades of big box stores loom in the distance. Held at bay by a soldier and statesman who will forever keep his silent and solemn vigil over this hallowed ground. And you can see from the parking area Hezekiah Easter's grave, and I do urge you very much to visit. This is a group of people who were there. It was John Cook in the middle. If you can see, there's I don't know if the cursor, you can see it, but that tombstone in the middle, John Cook, U.S. Navy. He's the gentleman who observed the damn the torpedoes full speed ahead. And another guy, Solomon Miller, was actually at Appomattox when General Lee surrendered. And these are members of the Mount Moore Cemetery Association and some Girl Scouts who were planting flags at a recent Memorial Day service. So moving outside of Nyack, I just wanted to share this image. One of the figures that loom large in the history of our village is Edward Hopper. Edward Hopper is arguably the most renowned one of the most renowned American realist painters. He has one painting which is distinguished as, there was a group called Art in America that did a survey of the most popular painting, and his Nighthawks was voted the most powerful painting, most popular painting in America. This building here is the painting is called House by the Railroad, and that's my drawing of it. This is Hopper's painting of it, and I learned a little bit about Hopper when I tried to recreate exactly the building from the vantage point he chose for this painting. But what I found is that the railroad bed is so far down below that you really couldn't get this kind of view. But I've learned since that Hopper, even though he was a powerful realist painter, also used some of the tricks of an illustrator, and he would use composites. So he would render the railroad tracks in a way that was better for the composition, and then superimpose the house behind it. So I was very interested in sharing stories about Hopper a couple of years ago because it was the 40th anniversary of the Edward Hopper House. Hopper's childhood home has been turned into an art and learning center, art and education center, and it was a very much kind of a community event, almost in many ways similar to Mount Moore, where the community rallied together to save it. It was about to be turned into condominiums. And one of the stories I thought was most compelling is the House by the Railroad. It also, allowed me to tell a story about Haverstraw. It's located, I think it's next to St. Peter's Cemetery in Haverstraw. But this painting was seen by the cinematographer for Alfred Hitchcock. And when Alfred Hitchcock saw it, it gave him the inspiration for the Bates Mansion that sat behind the Bates Motel in his classic film Psycho. And a lot of the mood of the piece is kind of, or Hopper's paintings, they're very moody and film noir-y, so they kind of fit into Hopper's aesthetic. But also there was a notion in that film, if you remember Psycho, the Bates family had been left behind because a highway was plowed through their town and they weren't given an exit. So everybody passed their town and then would get off the highway at another exit, and the town that got the exit got all the business. Well, that kind of happened in Rockland when the railroad was built. If your community happened to get a railroad station, you were prosperous. If not, you were left behind. And so that kind of disassociation of people left behind was somewhat of a theme in Hopper's work, or alienation and disassociation. So Hitchcock picked up on that. The next essay is about another so I'm trying to, even though I call the project the Nyack Sketchlog, I often travel beyond that, our community. And I currently am the manager of the Nyack Farmers Market, and I went out to Pomona to the orchards of Conklin to do this drawing. It's of an old English barn. I love buildings that have lived and show it. I believe it's almost like sometimes they're anthropomorphized through age, and you can feel the sagging kind of the story of many lives and many generations when a building persists and but still stands. And there's a great deal of generations when you think about the orchards of Conklin. I'll share this. Since Nicholas Conklin sought to have the land that he farmed named Pomona after Roman goddess of fruitful abundance, 11 generations of Conklins have tilled the soil in Rockland County, 11 generations. So that would make Orchards of Conklin the oldest family business in New York State and the 8th oldest in the country. So there's an incredible amount of history there. The Nyack Farmers Market, Orchards of Conklin is one of our anchors. They have been with us from the beginning, over 25 years. And it's wonderful to go out there. I'm sure people are aware of it, and I'm glad I can share a little bit of that history. This drawing is not of a place in the county, although further out near Hillburn and Mahwah, there is the land of the Lenape, a nation in Split Rock, and recently they've been able to better secure their foothold there. I did this piece around in 2013. It was around the 400th anniversary of the arrival of Europeans in this region, and there was an event called the Two Wampum Row, where folks from the indigenous community had a flotilla of hand-powered vehicles, boats that came down from the north down the Hudson to the United Nations to be a part of that of that event. And there was an event here in Piermont where Dwayne Perry, who is the chief of the Ramapo Lenape, participated. It's incredible that the contributions of the native peoples are sometimes not really recognized, and Dwayne Perry is always mindful to remind people that the 200 of the first cannons that were shot in the American Revolution were from ironworks that were controlled and produced by the Lenape, and the Great Chain across the Hudson was also produced with that same material. My next essay is a little is in this eastern part of the county. It's this hat is a fire department hat from the Piermont Fire Department from 1851. Very recently, Daniel Gostwick Sr., who is an ex-chief of the Piermont Fire Department, has been leading the effort to recognize a gentleman named Thomas Pomplin. In 1854, at the age of 28, Thomas was called to help extinguish a fire at the at a pail factory in Nyack. Back then, the means of transportation was by by foot, and a pump was dragged that whole distance from Piermont to Nyack, approximately 2.5 miles. And because of the heat and the exhaustion, Tommy Pomplin succumbed to those extreme circumstances. So now we're trying to make sure that he's recognized, because when the list of firefighters who died in service was made, most likely because of his race, Tommy Pomplin was not listed. So this group of firefighters are working to make sure that he is recognized. And I wrote that essay, and keep your ears open, because I think soon there's going to be a monument to Mr. Pomplin in Piermont. This is a drawing of a Haverstraw location, the L'Italien restaurant. It serves the Haitian American community. The chef there, Michelle Timothy, is the culinary artist in residence at the Nyack Farmers Market. If you are ever in Nyack on any Thursday, we're open from 8 until 2 in the afternoon. I would urge you to attend. Her business started humbly as a catering concern and a vendor at the farmers market. And now she's doing quite well. And I urge you to visit the restaurant and have a straw. And this is a drawing of a building in Hilburn that is currently the administrative headquarters for part of the school district, but it was once elementary school, Hilburn Elementary School, and the Brown versus Board of Education, one of the most important civil rights cases in the country, was informed very much by a case in Hilburn. There was a separate school system created in that part of our county that was for African American students only. And in 1943, a Brooks School parent named Marion Van Dunk engaged the services of a young attorney from the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP, Thurgood Marshall. So Thurgood Marshall did come here to Rockland County, and he represented 49 school children that wanted to be admitted to the newer, the modern school, but were denied because of their race. Helen Hayes, who was a Nyack resident at the time, put out a statement saying she looks forward with hope and prayers to the developments in Hilburn, and she is sure that the white people in Hilburn will have the faith in democracy and meet the situation with tolerance and understanding. Their audience today is as wide as the world, she wrote at that time. I told the story through the eyes of the Dr. Travis Jackson, who has passed away since then, but who was one of those 49 children that were seeking admission into Hilburn. He went on to become an administrator in that same school system. And of course, Thurgood Marshall went on to become appointed by President Kennedy to the United States Second Court. And then in 1967, he became the first African-American Supreme Court justice. So one of the things that I had to reflect upon in writing this essay was that it might not be true in Nyack per se, but certainly in the country, classrooms are more segregated today than they were in 1955 when Brown versus Board was decided. It's probably a matter of not just the failure in the education system, but also, you know, economics and residential segregation, but certainly that's a sad statistic. I'm also very moved by this story because my grandmother, who was in that drawing on the photograph that I showed earlier, she actually was one of the teachers at the Brooks School, and she provided support and for kids that had to go to school in a building without plumbing or heat when that was certainly available to other children. So I'm glad that our county was able to overcome that and also to play a part in the ultimate integration of American school systems. So these drawings tell the story of history, but oftentimes they've become projects for today and for the future. So I have worked in government and nonprofits and as an organizer. So I'm always trying to figure out a way to get people, you know, off the page and into the world to do things to improve the community. So this is a bench that currently now sits in Memorial Park in Nyack. And this is the day that I was able to work with a group of people that invited Toni Morrison to give a reading about the bench. Toni Morrison has a project called The Bench by the Road, where she recognizes places that are significant to the African diaspora. And she was a guest for us for a day. It was a very moving address that she gave. And sadly, it was probably one of her last public appearances. She spoke of the importance that there are monuments for the Union soldiers, there's monuments for the Confederate soldiers, but they're not monuments for the slave. And for that, she has dedicated herself to reverse. There are about 25 such monuments around the world right now. There's one in near Frederick Douglass's home. There are some in Europe to kind of mark colonialism. There are some in New England, and we have our own here. When she was asked why she when she was asked why she wrote the book Beloved, which I always like to remind people had double Nyack origins. It was, Toni Morrison wasn't in Nyack, but she lived in Grandview for many years. And the movie Beloved was directed by the late Jonathan Demme, who lived in Upper Nyack. When Toni Morrison was asked why she wrote the book Beloved, she wrote, "There is no place that you or I can go to think about or not think about, to summon the presence of or recollect the absence of slaves. There's no suitable memorial or plaque or wreath or wall or park or skyscraper lobby. There is no 300-foot tower. There's no small bench by the road." So we're very proud now to have one of those benches by the road. And I do think there's a strong argument that another bench as part of that project could be placed in Hilburn at the site of the old Brooks School. So that was one project that leapt off the pages of the sketch log. And this is another one. When I first started drawing, I'm around, I guess, my 550th week of creating sketch logs. And at first I thought, Nyack is a square mile village. I could just document every square inch myself, but that was rather hubristic. So when I got over that and I realized that maybe it's a job for a larger group, we created a flash sketch mob. My fiance Marisol Diaz and I organized one that's the poster for here in June of 2015. And we invited a group of artists. I think we had almost 100 artists that were deployed to stand on either side of one of the main streets, actually Main Street in Nyack. And each person would draw the vision across the street from them. And then we would scan all the drawings and we're creating a visual map of the village. And I think as I realized that, my focus has been driven by Nyack, I want now to start looking further into the county for opportunities and objects or places to record. So that's what I'd like to ask of you. I'd like for there to be a Rockland County sketch log. I have a kind of family connection to some of the sites that I've picked, but we are all related by our love for this place. And I'd be very eager to answer any questions that you have about the work that I've done. But going forward, I'd love to hear some ideas that you have about stories that you think that need to be told. I like to say that there are too many stories and not enough storytellers. So maybe this is something that we can collaborate on. I'd be eager to hear your ideas about places and stories and events that you think should be recorded, whether they, I'm certainly always interested in things that haven't really been told, but gathering all these stories together in a volume about Rockland is something that certainly future generations would benefit from. And it's a lot of fun. It's a paraphrase of Socrates, but I do believe that the unexamined place is not worth living in. So I look forward to examining Rockland County with you. And I thank you for your time this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. We do have a couple questions in the chat. You could also ask some questions. Let's ask these first here. So Marianne has a question. Does the barn on the land of the Conklin Orchard still exist?
Yes, it does. Absolutely. It's still there. It defies gravity a little bit. And it has it's still in use. It was a storing tractor last time I saw it. It's kind of close to the farm stand. It's just across the street a little bit. I think you can see it. So yeah, it is still there. So when you're going apple picking, you can check it out.
Yeah, I just want to mention that, Bill.
Hey, Colette.
Hi, Bill. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see
That
you.
has been a staple from my family who live in Queens and Long Island. They make it a point to come up every year to go. We go apple picking.
No, it's wonderful.
At the orchards.
Oh, wonderful.
And
So good to see you, Colette.
Sorry?
So good to see you, Colette.
Oh, thank you. It's good to be seen. And because I'm in Spring Valley, I mean, I use it sort of like a supermarket. I just sort of run up the road and it's a pleasure to just do business with them. I've been doing business with them for about 30 years or so. I'm so proud that they're still there and that they haven't given in to the pressures that be to give up their land to, produce multi-housing.
Yeah, 11 generations is pretty impressive.
Oh, so Bill?
Yes, you must have a great list, Colette.
A list of
places that you think need to be recorded.
We'll have to talk sometime. But
Sure.
I'm thinking about a very, having worked at RCC, in their communications department, and being very active with the different clubs on campus. I'm thinking about a very impressive documentary with photographs, really illustrations, that Elizabeth Szilagyi put together as chair of that Haitian club in the Haitian committee on campus, because a lot of it included Haitian history as it was. And it seemed to me that I've got a book here somewhere, and it seemed to me that I was told that many of the Haitians came down from the Albany area down the Hudson and settled into Rockland County and then henceforth Spring Valley. So I certainly think not enough of that history has been covered. Yeah, so yeah, there's a lot. There really is, I mean, I'm still uncovering. I'm just about to finish publishing a book. It's written. And so, there are a lot of just little, having worked for the Journal News and the Bergen Record, and then of course the college, there's a lot of tidbits that we really just need to explore. Sure. And I really have to give thanks to the the Friends of the Mount Moore Cemetery, because I've taken pictures there, just kind of documenting Route 59 through a project. And I really feel that that group of people were worth their weight in gold to have fought off Pyramid, in terms of retaining that space. And I've also got pictures of Hezekiah Easter. So having been here a long time, I've got quite a collection that maybe we should go through at some point.
Oh, absolutely. I'd love that. There's a volume called Haiti on the Hudson, which documents a little bit of the migration of the Haitian community to Rockland County. And so certainly, Nyack and Spring Valley. So yeah, I would love to see Elizabeth's documentary and make a contribution to recording that history. Thank you, Colette.
Okay, any other questions or?
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah, yes.
I would like to see your sketchbooks, and I wonder if they are being sold in a bookstore, or how many sketchbooks have you done, Bill? And how could I get to own one or whatever? How, tell us.
Well, a couple ways. So yeah, there are two of them. I'm working on a third, but there are two right now. You could go to nyackgift.com. And if you wanted to just buy them online and send them to you, nyackgift.com. They're $25 each. Each one has 55 essays and short stories. Sorry, essays and sketches. Or you could also visit Pickwick Bookshop in Nyack. It's available there.
Okay, that's easy. That's good.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Also, just to add to that, Bill has did donate both of those books to the Finkelstein Library. We're in the process of getting them in. We're a little behind with our getting our books in, so we're kind of concentrating on our bestsellers right now. But like pretty soon, we'll have that, so you could check them out from the Finkelstein Library as well. So
Thank you, Phyllis, and thanks, Kyle. I'm glad you got the books.
Bill, I had another idea that I wanted to share with you in the audience. There's a very interesting gentleman who lives here in Rockland County. He used to live in Orange, but he worked for many years as a counselor. Wayne Bartow, Bartow, and Wayne was kind of like a central figure that I photographed because he's an African American shipwright, and he was very instrumental along with Warren Marr, who used to live in Valley Cottage, in bringing the Amistad,
Wow.
just bringing the Amistad to fruition, if you will. And that was part of the documentary that I did for almost 10 years, running back and forth to Connecticut to photograph, and then also going to Nova Scotia. So that's part of my retrospective Spirit of a People that I spend a lot of time. So Wayne, to my knowledge, is up and about and doing a lot of work on his boats up in Stony Point.
Oh, I love
So I really want to get back up there and do some more contemporary work. But he actually was the head of the volunteer services working with Amistad America.
Yeah, that's an amazing
And
story.
you probably remember he came twice. They brought the Amistad here
Yeah,
twice.
that's amazing.
Yeah, so it was just an absolute amazing story. But he was always kind of in the background. But through Warren Marr, who Andrea Bythewood, no longer here in Rockland County, but she was an administrator at the college, and she brought Warren Marr to one of our African American History Month lectures.
Mm-hmm.
And it was through Warren that I learned of Wayne Bartow. And then also we all were part of Undoing Racism with Maria Luisa
Mm-hmm.
and Darcy Castellero
Sure.
and a couple of other people. And Wayne also was part of that group.
That's great.
So he's a resource that you really need to, I would suggest, interview.
Where's the Amistad now?
As far
In
as
Boston?
I know, it's
Is it
in
New England?
Connecticut. No, it was in I'm sorry, I'm really blanking, but it was basically sort of out of New Haven, Connecticut. Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm just really blanking.
It was an incredible
But
story.
Mystic Seaport is where it
Yeah,
was built.
yeah, that's right.
So,
That's right.
yeah, so that's where I did like a lot of my sort of running as I was working for the college. I was sort of working on that project for about 10 years. So I've got some really, really interesting footage of that documentation, including Bill Pickney, and I don't know where he is right now, who was one of the world travelers on the open seas. He was a captain. So I've got some nice photographs of him. So it was a very interesting story, which I think we need to bring to light to more of our children in the educational
Thank you.
system.
Thank you, Colette. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kay Kleinberg. I
Hi,
don't know.
Kay.
Hi. I just wanted to mention that for everybody here that's on the Zoom call, if you're a Rockland resident, there is a wonderful place called the Rockland Center for the Arts, and they have a beautiful exhibition going on right now on Charles White.
Oh, that's right.
So I would like to just
That's
put a word-
amazing. Yeah,
put a
absolutely.
word out there. The exhibit goes on until June 11th, and I really encourage everybody to attend.
Yeah,
keep
Roka's an incredible story. It's yeah, it really is. Some of the most significant artists in the 20th century were responsible in getting it up and running, and that is the current exhibit is wonderful. So yeah, absolutely.
And I
I'd
actually,
like to do a story of Segis because
yeah.
you know I haven't done a sketch talk about Segis, and I know that they have quite a impressive collection of Mr. White's work.
Wow. Well, you know, it's really interesting because in that Charles White Influences show, my work is being shown in Gallery 1 and 2.
Yes.
And actually, May 19th from 7 to 8, we're doing a virtual, which I'll share with you, and somehow you can
Oh,
share the.
really? Oh, send that to
Oh,
me
great.
tonight. Actually, if you could send that to me tonight,
I'm happy
Colette,
to.
because I'd like to. What I'll do is one of my favorite drawings and essays is about Roca, but whenever I do rerun an essay, I'd like to do it for a reason to get people to go somewhere to do something. So I will promote. If you send that to me tonight, I'll
I'm
publish
happy
a
to.
column tomorrow about it.
I'm happy to. I was also very fortunate enough to be artist in residence at the Segis Institute for a number of years. I didn't even know that was my title until Professor Gordon's daughter said, Jessica Gordon said, "Oh, Colette, you're a artist in resident." I said, "Oh, okay." I didn't realize
That's
that.
great.
Yeah, so I think I would very honestly say I've been fortunate to work with just about all of the art centers here in Rockland County, and they have been extremely supportive. And we have a big show coming up at Garnerville Arts Center, and that's May 21st and 22nd. They have their big festival, and I'll be showing work on my Queen Mother of Progress photographs. In addition to Chico Wally will be dancing and drumming during our reception, and then doing workshops the following day. So we've got a lot going on.
Send that as well, Colette, and I'll promote that.
They haven't. I'll just write it because they haven't actually done any marketing material yet, to my
All right.
knowledge.
Well, I'll put something in tomorrow.
Okay.
And Kay, thank you for that mention. Absolutely, that's great.
Yeah. Thank you, Kay.
Great, great. Thank you, Colby.
Because I wouldn't have remembered to mention it.
Aw.
But I think that we're fortunate to be in such a diverse and artistic community. I mean, I was watching a Netflix program this morning with Tyne Daly, and I remember meeting her at the old Helen Hayes Theater. We were there, Chico Wally, to perform, and I met her in the ladies' room. We were changing our clothes, and it's like, oh, I've met Tyne Daly. What a tremendous! So there's so much, culture in Rockland. We just have to really keep it going and
absolutely.
And
you're a big part of that, Colette.
I don't know how it happened. I guess you just keep going. You just keep going, and you build up a portfolio, and people want to see your work. Thank God.
Amen.
And the Finkelstein Memorial Library has actually collected my work, and I'm so pleased at that. They have been incredible over the years.
Yeah, Colette's done a lot of stuff with us.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle.
Yeah. All right. So anybody else have any questions or comments?
Yeah, what's next, Bill? What else are you up to, or what stories are you looking at?
Another volume of the sketch. Like I want to do another compilation.
Okay.
And I've been working. My kind of work now is with the Chamber of Commerce. I run the Nyack Farmers Market, and we're creating another venue where I hope you'll show your work at some point in Upper Nyack called the River Hook. It's the Hester Herring Cason Preserve. It's a 12-acre open space. So we are doing a show in June with Lisa Levart's panels of the Lenape women.
Oh, I just saw her work in Ringwood Public Library on Saturday.
Yeah. So some of those panels are going to be on display in Upper Nyack. I'm working on that.
And I've been there. It's a wonderful trail. It's right
Isn't it?
by Book
Yep.
Mountain. It's beautiful.
Yep.
I have to say, I love it.
We had an Arbor Day event there. We had a couple hundred people there on Saturday, and we planted more trees, and there's a sculpture path. And soon there'll be some photography. So Colette, definitely, we should talk about that as well.
Oh, yes, I'm
Oh,
so
great, Colette.
excited.
That's great.
Oh, I'm so excited.
So thank you, Bill, very much.
Hey,
It was
great. So
Thank
yeah,
you.
definitely. Thank you so much for presenting and
My pleasure.
with us. And like I said, we are recording this tonight. So if you missed any of it, or if you know anybody else that would like to see it, we'll hopefully have that up on our website in the next maybe 2 or 3 days. So thank you very much, Bill.
Kyle, thank you for inviting me. And Colette, please send me that stuff so I can get out the word tomorrow.